what's going on, everybody? This is John J Gaming on the mic here, coming at you with a brand new episode of the FCS Dynasty here on NCAA 2006, and we also got that next mod as well. We've seen 5 full seasons of FCS college football now, and what that means for us is that we are now through a whole generation of college football players. So the players that you now see on these teams, they are completely generated by the AI or through your guys' custom recruits. So it's going to be interesting to see who's at the top, who is going to fall off a little bit, and as well as take a look at that preseason Heisman watch, that All-American list, and of course, we are also going to take a look at the new customs that enter in this series as we prepare for this new FCS series. So guys, I hope you guys are ready for season number 6 to get started. I'm certainly excited for it. If you are, make sure you go ahead and smack that like button. And if you're new to the channel and like sports simulation gaming, this is the channel for you. And I encourage you to hit that subscribe button as well. So with that being said, we'll go ahead and dive right into it, starting with the preseason top 25. Now here in season number 6, we certainly have a bundy of great college football teams down here at the FCS level. So who's going to be in that preseason top 25? We'll start with New Hampshire Wildcats. They're at number 1. They are led, of course, by Bruno Baggio, who finds himself on the cover of the F.1 Sports preseason magazine. But don't obviously count out the Western Carolina Catamounts either. The Catamounts are your defending national champions as well. They do have a lot of new starters on this team, but it's still a very talented football team. They're at number 2. Following them is Sacramento State and Eastern Kentucky. Sacramento State in particular. They were a team that did make it to the championship game, so highly rated as such. North Dakota State will round out your top 5 as the Bison. They come in with an A- overall squad. They have a pretty strong defense, although their offense may have some question marks. But the team that is considered the best team, at least on paper, is the Southeast Missouri State Redhawks. They have an A overall team that is the highest overall team in the FCS Dynasty. Their defense is absolutely elite. They have an A+ defense, so that defense, I expect them to be one of the best in the country. And their offense looks a little bit better, led by their senior quarterback, Travis Johnson, who looks to right the ship after a rocky junior season. Also, other teams to keep an eye on is Montana at 7, Eastern Illinois at 8, Tennessee Martin at 9, and Sam Houston State. The Cardiac Cats rounding out your top 10. James Madison, though, they might be ranked a little bit low, might be courtesy of the ACC not being the best conference. I have them in that lower echelon of the Power 5 for the ACC, although they do have New Hampshire, so that is a thing for them. James Madison does have a very talented football team, though. A overall squad with a B+ offense and an A- defense. Also in this group, we have Nicholls State at 12, following Texas Southern and the Texas State Bobcats, who made their first FCS playoff appearance this past season. Georgia Southern, however, will be looking to get back into the FCS playoffs after winning that national championship back in year number 4. They missed out on the playoffs entirely. They were the first defending national champions to do that in this series. So they're going to look to avoid a drought and try to get back to the playoffs here in year number 6. As for the Delaware Fighting Blue Hens, they'll get some respect to start this season. They'll be ranked number 16 to start the season. As for other teams to watch out for in the bottom part of this top 25, we got the Akron Zips at 17. Northwestern State comes in at number 18 in the country, followed by San Diego State. South Carolina State, also an ACC team. They're 4th ACC team in this top 25 poll. Chattanooga comes in number 21 in the country. And then rounding out your group, you got Arkansas Pine Bluff, Montana State, who did sign the number 1 middle linebacker in the country. He may or may not be a custom player now. And we have Northern Arizona and Sanford wrapping things up. Couple of other teams to possibly keep an eye out for is Southeastern, Murray State, Utah State. Portland State could try to get back. They had a very disappointing year, number 5, but they'll look to bounce back and have a very good football team to do it for sure. And of course, a deep sleeper to make the playoffs this year possibly is the Tennessee State Tigers. They got themselves a good little football team with a B overall squad. You know, upsets always happen, so you can't completely count them out. But now we go ahead and see what that Heisman Trophy race, what is that going to be looking like as we move through the remainder of this season. So definitely a different little bit of a list. Could be looking at a new Heisman Trophy winner when it's all said and done. But a lot of old guys in this group. Got the senior Brad Andrauzi, who's a senior wide receiver from James Madison. Someone who could be a very dynamic receiver as stepped up to that number 1 role for the first time. Had 90 catches, 1,400 yards, and 10 touchdowns. And of course, has that really lethal passing offense behind him too. Western Carolina also has a really nice receiver in Dallas Davis. He's a senior redshirt for the Catamounts, part of that defending national champion team. Returned back for his senior season. Actually was able to get that extra year of eligibility because he is a graduate student. So that's how he's able to have a 5th year of eligibility. He has 1,300 yards and 10 touchdown grabs the previous season. A huge return for the Western Carolina Catamounts. A surprising return, to say the least. But we do have at least one junior in here, though, and that's Bruno Baggio. He was the former number 1 quarterback in his recruiting class. He's been a 2-year starter for the New Hampshire Wildcats, but, you know, can he make that big leap? You know, he's thrown quite a few interceptions, 20 and 16 respectfully. Was a little bit more efficient last season, but can he take another big jump here in year number 6 and really get New Hampshire over the top and lead New Hampshire back to the national championship? Also, someone to keep an eye out for is Kevin Blumenthal. The senior redshirt quarterback is a graduate student as well, so he got that 5th year of eligibility because of that. He had his best season last year. He threw for 3,400 yards, 28 touchdowns versus 17 interceptions. Someone to possibly keep an eye out for NFL aspirations. Led Delaware on a Cinderella run, and now that football team is a little bit better now. So maybe they don't have to do as much in order to get into the FCS playoffs anymore. So definitely somebody to look after, as is the junior running back, Paris McPherson. Paris McPherson is a speed guy. He is a 2-year starter for the Blue Hens, and he really took off in his sophomore year. 1,300 yards rushing, 17 touchdowns to go with it. It makes for a very dynamic threat in the backfield for Delaware, as Blumenthal's also a scrambling quarterback, so that's something to also keep an eye out on. A lot of athleticism in that backfield that could lead Delaware to yet another deep run. And speaking of talented football players, we'll now go into your preseason All-American list. Now, this All-American list is comprised of first and second team guys, so probably no freshmen in here, I would imagine. But that being said, some guys to keep a look after that were not previously named is Cortez Green. He's a senior quarterback for FIU who has not made the FCS playoffs, but they played pretty good in the season. They could go ahead and possibly make a name for themselves here. Left-handed quarterback, actually, had a very solid season for the Panthers, but we'll look to get things back on track. We have also talked about Paris McPherson already, but Justin Brooks is in here as well. He's a junior tailback for the McNeese State Cowboys. The junior Cowboys running back is primed to get his first 1,000-yard season as he ran for 960 yards and 12 touchdowns this past football season. As for the receiving core, Brad Andrauzi, of course, no surprise that he's on here because he is on the preseason Heisman watch. But a couple of other receivers to look after is Taylor Foster, the junior wide receiver for the Brown Bears, as Foster had a very good season in the Ivy League. He had 1,100 yards and 12 touchdowns this past football season. Part of a Brown team that has really dominated the Ivy League, part of 4 out of 5 conference championship teams from the Ivy League are from Brown. So something to look after there. We also have senior wide receiver and one of your guys' customs as well, Solomon West from Texas Southern, hoping that he can get a little bit better of a consistent passing attack, because everything did from Roderick Murray, but Roderick Murray is no longer in school, so that is something to look after too. As for the tight ends in the room, we got Billy Light back for his senior year, a big return for the Catamounts, as he was one of the few people from that national championship team that actually did start this past season. So having Billy White is going to be great for whoever is going to be the new starting quarterback for the Catamounts now that Michael Young did graduate in the offseason episode. Rounding out the offensive side of the ball for the first team All-American, so we got Rick Nixon for his senior year. He won the Remington Award this past season. Also got some love for Texas teams, as we got Brandon Mitchell, the senior right guard for the Texas State Bobcats. Also in here is the junior Andrew Johnson. He's a junior from Georgia Southern. And then protecting the blind sides of quarterbacks everywhere is the junior John Franz of Texas Southern, as well as junior redshirt Zach Lee. And now we find ourselves on the defensive side of football here for the first team All-American list. As for who is on that first team All-American list on the defensive side of the ball, no surprises here that we have Marshawn Palmer on this list. Dude had 20 sacks last season for Eastern Kentucky. Somehow did not leave for the draft. I thought he was someone that could be drafted from the FCS ranks. He's back for his senior year and is looking to be disruptive once again. We'll see if he can get close to those 20 sacks. He did have put together 2 consecutive double-digit seasons. We'll see if he makes it a third here in year number 6. On the other side is Aaron Sanchez, the junior defensive end from Kent State. He will be on the first team All-American list, at least to start this season. And then we also have the senior Travis James of New Hampshire in here as well. Also plugging things up is Joey Herring, who played in the national championship game this past season. As for the linebacking core for the first team All-American group, we have Anthony Subar, the senior redshirt from Sacramento State. He is back for his senior year. We're going to be that defensive leader that the Hornets are looking for, trying to provide that sting. Also in this group as well is Josh Rosado, the senior redshirt from Delaware. He will be in this first team All-American group, as Rosado had a solid year last year. Almost had 100 tackles on this season. Has been a very consistent player, and he will be back for his graduate season. As for outside linebacker, we have Patrick Kennedy, also back for his senior year as well. Someone that also is back for their graduate season. That is a common theme in this group. Patrick Kennedy out here looking for a good time, as he'll be looking to provide a big spark here for the Catamounts. And rounding out the first team, we obviously got the guys in the secondary. It's a very familiar group. Nate Freeman is in here. He's a junior corner. I believe he won the Jim Forpay Award this past season. But other guys that are in here as well is Tama Maska, who played in the national championship game this past season. He's one of your guys' customs and entering his junior season as well. Brian Burrell is also in here too. He's a freshman redshirt. So not sure how that works. Could it be something to where he ended up not getting that much playing time, played under the 4 games rule. Not sure what's going on there. But Pistol McNear, no surprise, is on here. Dude was a beast through this season, had double-digit interceptions. This is a guy that's going to declare for the NFL within the next couple of seasons. And of course, we got the kickers and punters too. Ricky Williams is in here. He's a sophomore redshirt from Sacramento State. And Terrell Braden is a senior punter playing for UNLV in what could possibly be his final collegiate season. But now we move on to the second team All-American list, and it is highlighted by Kevin Blumenthal, who's on that preseason Heisman Trophy race. He'll be looking to make a big impact again for the Delaware Blue Hens. We do have a little bit of a surprise at the running back position. Got Bo Arias, the senior custom from Northwestern State. He's on here. Got his first 1,000-yard season, 1,200 yards, and 11 touchdowns this past season. But also got another running back by the name of Jeremy Tyler to possibly watch out for. He's the second All-American named on this list for the UNLV Rebels. And not only that, we have a third running back on the second-team All-American list, Justin McCarty. He's a junior from the Maine Black Bears, and someone that might be popping off potentially this upcoming season. He has not had an 1,000-yard season yet, but he knows how to find that end zone. No, he does have 12 rushing touchdowns back in year number 5. So that leaves there are 3 receivers / tight ends on this second team list. One of them being Dallas Davis, who is on the preseason Heisman Trophy race. We do also have Drew Williams, the senior redshirt from Idaho, but rounding out the group will be a sophomore, Josh Cantrell from Nicholls State. This will be his first season without Frederick McNair, who is now in the NFL. Josh Cantrell there, he can make some things happen though. In his freshman season, had 600 yards and 8 touchdowns, which is really impressive considering Nicholls State does not throw the football very often. But for the offensive line, we have some more hog mollies at the line of scrimmage. On the offensive side, we got Sergio Scott, the junior from Montana State. At guard, we have Brian Brazel. He's a senior from Eastern Kentucky. For another guard, we got another senior by the name of Jason Noel. He's from Georgia Southern. And then rounding out your group is the center Nate Keel, a senior from Texas Southern. And yet another senior by the name of Brandon Pearson. He plays at North Dakota State. On the opposite side of the offensive line, we have Alex Washington, who's a junior defensive end at San Diego State. But then another All-American here by Charles Blunt. Blunt is a senior at Delaware. Very good season last year. Ends up with 8 sacks. Been a very productive player for the Blue Hens as they'll look to get back to the FCS playoffs for the second time in 2 years. And in the interior, someone who I wasn't sure if he was going to come back to school, Yosef Lysiak. He's a senior from Southeast Missouri State, one of the best prospects that we have down here at the FCS level. Someone to definitely keep an eye out for his next offseason if he goes to the NFL or not. Rounding out the defensive line, however, is Kelvin Jackson. He'll be a senior at Western Michigan. As for the linebacking core, we are going to start with the junior from UL Monroe, Mike Young, who's going to try to get the Warhawks back to the playoffs for the first time since maybe even season number 2. It's certainly been a while. As for the outside linebackers, we got the senior Brian Hall, part of that New Hampshire's Wildcat team. Brian Hall comes in with 6 sacks on the season, as well as 65 tackles. A little Swiss Army knife there for the New Hampshire Wildcats. And for the other outside linebacking spot, we got Matt Woods, the senior redshirt for Sacramento State. He's back for his 5th year as he is considered a graduate student. Moving on to the corners, we have the senior Celdrick Alford. Very tall corner, 6'7", definitely is very lanky, which is very good to have in those one-on-one situations. It led him to have 6 interceptions this past season, and he is entering his senior season. Also in here is Anton Bell, the junior from Sacramento State. He plays corner for the Hornets. We also got a special guest appearance from the Kangaroos of UMKC, as we have the junior Justin Lane that's in here. He's a second-team All-American and knows how to force fumbles. He had 4 forced fumbles this past season, knows how to find the football. And your last skill position guy is Pat Frazier, the senior from Stephen F. Austin. Hardly played his first couple of seasons, but his junior year, he really stepped up to the plate as that was his first year starting. Of course, we have the kickers and punters on the second team, and these are the remaining All-Americans. Paulo Piallo is going to be your second team All-American kicker. He's from Texas State and one of your guys' customs as well. And rounding out the group is Preston Hall, a junior punter from the San Diego State Aztecs. But now we get to one of my favorite parts in this episode, or at least these types of episodes, as well as probably for a lot of you guys as well, I want to go ahead and reveal all of the guys that did end up getting into the FCS Dynasty as custom players. Now, what I did do as for previous seasons is that I tried to get a player within your overall range on the teams that you wanted. But if that didn't happen, then we ended up getting you onto another team in that similar overall range. Also, this is going to be the last time that I will accept custom players as well, since I want to move a little bit faster. We got some big things in the work, and I'll talk about how I want to do in terms of pacing later on. But with that being said, we'll go ahead and reveal the final custom players that will be included in this series. Now, starting things off here at Alcorn State, we got PJ McNair Jr., the 6'3" quarterback, is going to play for Alcorn State, but will have to work extremely hard to see time on the playing field. And speaking of quarterbacks, we also have Freddie Hall over at Appalachian State. The Mountaineers quarterback, very mobile guy, actually will have a chance to start right away, given that Derek Wilson, the junior redshirt, he did not complete the waiver paperwork, so he actually does lose a year's eligibility. He will have to compete, though, with junior redshirt Aaron Spurlock. At Bethune-Cookman, though, we actually have multiple custom guys going to start in the running backfield. This is Joseph Thompson, 5'7", 187 pounds. He is going to start as a 4th-string running back for the Bethune-Cookman Wildcats. Meanwhile, at guard, we have Reese's Pieces, standing at 6'4", 330 pounds. Will have also an opportunity to get some playing time early for Bethune-Cookman on that offensive line. At Brown, we have Kosuke Nagamura at quarterback for the Brown Bears. Also somebody that will have a chance to start early on. He's a 72 overall, and he will be competing with freshman redshirt Mario Jordan for that starting quarterback job. Going to be interesting to see who wins that out of spring ball. Meanwhile, at Chattanooga, we have Wesley Ibrahim, who is going to be a fullback for the Chattanooga Mocs. The 6'1" true freshman, he will actually get a chance to play at that fullback position early, as he was named a starter on that position. For the Delaware Blue Hens, they'll get a chance to have a freshman custom wide receiver in Booth Boofington. Booth Boofington has a lot of speed on him at 6'4", so a nice frame to work with. But he is going to start out as the number 6 wide receiver. I don't expect him to get playing time, at least not much of it, early on in his playing career. At Delaware State, however, we have another freshman custom, this time on the defensive side of the ball, Ja'Cory Lobdell III. He's from Delaware State, and he's going to be playing defensive end for the Hornets, and he's going to be expected to start right away on that Hornets defensive line. Going to the opposite side of the country, though, we have Swag Thompson, the true freshman for the Denver Pioneers, only at 5'11", but he does have speed to burn. He's got 94 speed to work with, and he should be starting right away for the Denver Pioneers. But a team that actually got a few customs was Eastern Illinois. They managed to garner 4 custom guys in this recruiting class, 2 of them in the wide receiver position. One is Carlton Vester, who's going to be the number 2 wide receiver for the Eastern Illinois Panthers this upcoming season. And someone that will have to work a little bit harder to get playing time is Trevor Vaden, who has a lot of speed but needs to work on the intricacies of the wide receiver position. Meanwhile, on the defensive side of football, Navin Laxman comes to Eastern Illinois and is a highly touted prospect at the defensive end position. He comes in as an 82 overall and is expected to start as well. And at corner, we have Will Solakbe at 5'11", 196 pounds. He's a 74 overall, and that's good for being the best corner on this team. Should be a guy to get playing time early. Moving on to another Eastern team. This is Eastern Washington. They only managed to get one custom player though, and that is Fiete Hans. He is a true freshman at 6'3", 280 pounds. Could be a little bit more polished, but at 80 overall, he'll be expected to start right away for the Eastern Washington Eagles. Moving over to the Elon Phoenix, as they were able to get a couple of custom guys themselves. On the offensive side of the ball, they got BJ Stroud at 6'3", 220 pounds. Highly talented player at 80 overall, but he is going to sit behind Eric Booth, who is currently a junior and was named on that preseason first team all-conference list. Someone else that will also have to earn some playing time a little bit is Will Smith IV. He sits at 5'11", 175 pounds. The true freshman will be the number 3 corner, but I expect to see him on special teams a lot for the Phoenix to utilize that 99 speed early on. Truly one of a kind. As for Florida A&M, they actually do get 3 custom guys, all of which are on the defensive side of the ball. Starting at the outside linebacker position, we have Pinto Bean and Garbanzo Bean. They are brothers who should be getting some early playing time, as they're going to be number 3 and number 4 outside linebackers on this team early on. Another person that they did manage to pick up is Ronald McDonald II. He's going to be a number 3 corner here for the Florida A&M Rattlers, as he'll be expected to rattle on, trying to get the Rattlers to their first FCS playoffs. But we head over to the Ivy League, as Harvard was able to get a custom guy themselves. That is Richard Morgan. He's going to be the first-string quarterback for the Crimson to start his college career. He's a very mobile quarterback, but does not have a grasp understanding of reading college defenses yet. At Howard, though, they got a defensive tackle who has a very special name, or at least a very unique name, I would say. This is John Rastafarian. He is 6'5", 275 pounds, and someone that could possibly start, or if they're in a free 4, get consistent playing time as a backup early on. He's going to be a 70 overall to start his college career. Idaho State, however, was able to get 2 custom guys to join their football team. First, on the defensive side of the ball, we have Tyler Krakow. He is a 6', 190-pound guy who will be starting right away for the Idaho State Bengals. He's a 74 overall, so a solid football player for sure. But on the offensive side of football, they have possibly their next quarterback by the name of Stephen Hennickson. He's going to need to be developed, as there's a couple other guys ahead of him, Brian Barnes, as well as Henry Corso, as well, who's a redshirt. But keep an eye out for Henningsen moving forward. This is a guy that can certainly throw the football too, and could possibly be a transfer candidate as well. Speaking of quarterbacks, there's a couple more that I wanted to talk about. We got Brady Montana at 6'5", 207 pounds. He'll be playing for the Indiana State Sycamores and will be their 4th-string quarterback in their true freshman season, so likely redshirt candidate. And at James Madison, we have Carlos Mudd, standing at 6'3", 197 pounds. He will also be redshirted for the James Madison Dukes. He would be listed as their number 3 quarterback if he wasn't being redshirted, still sitting behind fellow Customs, Grayson Skinner, and Hans Heinlein. But while we are on the James Madison Dukes, I also want to talk about another custom that's on this team, Zan Tazing. I probably butchered that name, and if I butchered it and you want to let me know in the comments, feel free to let me do that, because I always try to work on that pronunciation. But that being said, he is also going to be redshirted his upcoming freshman year. He is going to be a 74 overall, but a guy that can turn into a great red zone target. But that being said, Mississippi Valley State is able to get themselves a custom this year, and he's going to be playing on the offensive line. This is Randy Falzon, who's actually the best freshman that the Delta Devils were able to sign. He is a 70 overall who could get playing time depending on what happens with injuries and suspensions. Moving over to the Montana Grizzlies, there's a couple of custom guys here as well. We got Jordan Hill, the 6'3" quarterback, who will be listed as the number 4 guy as of right now, as he's behind a bunch of veterans on this team, but He knows how to play the game himself. He's got a 74 overall to his name to get things going. Also on this team as a custom is Dakota Miller. Got good size at 6'5", 199 pounds. Not necessarily a burner though, and he'll be the number 5 wide receiver. Probably will occasionally get playing time for somebody to throw the ball up to and hope somebody comes down with it. He definitely has that ability. But Montana State was able to get the number 1 middle linebacker in high school football, and that turned into a custom. Owen Scripps comes in as an 80 overall, and because he comes in as a 5-star player, he's going to be expected to play like a 5-star. We'll see if he can live up to those expectations. Speaking of linebackers, though, Gordon Tucker finds himself on this list, and Gordon Tucker definitely has a lot of talent of his own. Well, he's a little bit undersized, and that's why he's not considered a number 1 middle linebacker. This is still a very good football player, and coming in at 80 overall, Gordon Tucker could be a force to be reckoned with. Also, somebody that could play down the line but will not be expected to play right away is BK Whopper. BK Whopper is a 6'1" quarterback. He's going to start as a 5th-string guy. Probably will be redshirted, but a lot of seniors and juniors ahead of him look for him to possibly start in his sophomore redshirt season. Up next, we have the New Hampshire Wildcats, who are the preseason number 1. And joining this preseason number 1 team is Kanfin Rahul. He's a 6'4" quarterback, and he's going to be sitting behind Jason Dubois and Bruno Baggio as he learns from 2 very talented quarterbacks here at the FCS level. Speaking of quarterbacks, we have some change now that we don't see Frederick McNair anymore. One of them that could be the future of this program is Delaware. He's going to be a quarterback at Nicholls State this fall. He stands at 6'3", and he'll look to be the future of this program, but we'll have to fight through fellow freshman Eric Miller and the upperclassman Tavares Richards. Another quarterback to also keep an eye on in this group is Ty Christopher. He is also a custom player at 70 overall and is going to be a more of a developmental piece for the Nicholls State Colonels. At wide receiver for Nicholls State, though, is Cody Vousen, who seems to be a very talented guy himself. The only freshman on this receiving core is going to be their wide receiver free, and Cody Vousen in that spot should get plenty of playing time. And finally, someone to get quite a bit of playing time as well, as the corner room is pretty thin right now, is Jim Lavelle. Jim Lavelle is the number 4 corner for the Nicholls State Colonels. A lot of upperclassmen ahead of him, so that sets himself very well in terms of getting plenty of playing time later in his career. Moving on to North Dakota out in that Big Sky Conference, we got John Cunningham, who comes in as a 70 overall, someone who could get some solid playing time. At strong safety for North Dakota State, though, we have Kenny Johnson. He'll be a true freshman for the Bison, sitting behind 2 upperclassmen, though, in Jimmy Broussard and Marquez Williams. Up next is the Northeastern Huskies, who are still searching for their first FCS playoff appearance, and looking to turn that around potentially is Steve Garrard Jr. He's a true freshman at Northeastern with 6'2" and 255 pounds of frame, so a very big guy for a quarterback position. Will be hard to be brought down, but he is a 70 overall, though, and that means he will probably be redshirted this upcoming season. Speaking of quarterbacks, we now go over to Northern Arizona, and the Lumberjacks actually brought in a few other custom guys. But first, I wanted to talk about Devontae Joe Crozier. He's going to be a quarterback for the Lumberjacks, but will be a 5th-string guy, as there's a few other customs that are ahead of him on the depth chart as of right now. But this recruiting class that Northern Arizona brought in certainly has some dynamic weapons. And one of them was Chef Baker, who comes in as a 74 overall and looks to be the potential future of this program, but will fight with junior redshirt Leo Thomas and Neil Lewis, the freshman redshirt, for that 4th running back spot. And wide receiver, though, is Jeff Jefferton from the Northern Arizona University. He's a 6'3" receiver who is a absolute burner, 97 speed, but needs a little bit of seasoning. But also in this class as well, but is more of a possession receiver, is Tyrell Smoochie Wallace as his full name. He will also be a 74 overall as well. Up next, we have Northwestern State getting their customs introduced, and they do have a couple of guys on the defensive side of football. At middle linebacker, we got Andrea Vosa. He will be an 80 overall and might actually get the starting job. He will compete with sophomore linebacker Joe Clark. However, someone that will be solidified in a starting job right away is Marcus Latimer. Marcus Latimer, one of the best freshmen to come out of high school, 6'4", 211 pounds, and he has very fluid movements. We'll see if he can catch up to the speed of the college game, but that being said, he's got a lot of upside here at the FCS level. Following Northwestern State, we actually have the Omaha Mavericks, and Omaha actually brought in a couple of customs here in this recruiting class. Solid customs in that. We got Avery Dunk first and foremost, who plays center for Omaha, and he's actually going to be a starter on the offensive line right away, so you certainly do love to see that. And not to mention, they also brought in Quinnen Bonds, who's a 72 overall, will be their number 4 receiver, but I would not be surprised if he plays special teams. 6'8", 195 pounds too. This means this guy certainly has some tools. Speaking of receivers that could have some tools in the toolbox, we got Zoom Hendricks next, playing at Oral Roberts to start his college career. He's going to start as a 72 overall, but at 5'10", he'll have to get crafty with his route running if he's going to get open consistently at the college level. As that will now take us now to the Portland State Vikings, as Portland State, they got a couple of custom guys as well. Fallback is one of them, as he is going to be the backup fullback for the Portland State Vikings and starts as a 74 overall, but could potentially have more tools as he does carry 78 speed, so expect him to see the field sparingly in his freshman year. But someone that will have to work hard to get playing time his freshman year is Caleb Waters. He's a talented player at 74 overall, but buried on the depth chart. Would not be surprised if he ends up getting redshirted. South Carolina State, meanwhile, added a few custom guys themselves, and they're a talented bunch. Got John Dynamite to kick things off for the Bulldogs as he comes in as a 74 overall guy and will be a third string safety for the Bulldogs here to start his college career. Also starting things out on the defensive side of football is Georgie Ame. Georgie Ame is going to be an 80 overall outside linebacker. That could be the third outside linebacker, which could lead to solid playing time his freshman year, even though he's not a starter right now. And finally, someone that will actually be starting is Square Avery. He will be the starting center for the South Carolina State Bulldogs as a true freshman, doing so as a 74 overall. Keeping things in alphabetical order, we now go to the Sacramento State Hornets. And for the Sacramento State Hornets, they got a starter, at least one starter, on the offensive line. This is Henry Wong, who's a 6'6", 319-pound guy. And while we need a little bit of time to catch up to the college game, he certainly does have the strength for it as he comes in already as an 80 overall. As for Elvin Ubayo is going to be a weapon that the Hornets are going to love. He's 6'9", 244 pounds, and in spite of that frame, he is a 74 speed guy. Therefore, he's an 82 overall and could start right away, even though Ryan Jones is also on this team. After that, we have the Sam Houston State Cardiac Cats, who do bring in a grand total of one custom here for this season. We got David Dimitar, the 6'1", 209-pound guy, playing for the Cardiac Cats. He'll actually be a true starter right away as he's an 82 overall, outshining the others in spring football. Sanford as well will be bringing in a custom guy, and they will bring in Jammy. That is his actual name, but he's got speed to burn. He's got 98 speed, so while he is listed as the number 6 wide receiver for the Sanford Bulldogs, I would not be surprised if I saw him on special teams this year. Speaking of wide receivers, Suf Suvington is also on this team as well. Suf Suvington's going to start as a 72 overall with major speed to burn, That speed could be used for special teams, but for right now, Sue Sufington will be a number 7 wide receiver. But now we go to Southeast Missouri State, who does have that best team in all of America. We got James Pride starting out on the defensive tackle, working from the best in Josias Laziak. James Pride is going to be an 82 overall and will be a number 3 on that defensive tackle depth chart. So that will probably mean he'll probably get playing time his freshman year. But the other 2 customs that are on this Southeast Missouri State squad, they're both at the middle linebacker position. William Penn Jr. is one of them. He comes in as an 80 overall, but will be redshirted. And that means it would make sense for also Patrick Silver to be redshirted as well, as they look to learn the speed of the college game. And now we go to the Tennessee Tech Golden Eagles, who are also in the same conference as Southeast Missouri State. Gabriel Rupert starts out. He's a true freshman for the Golden Eagles. He's only a 68 overall, but could possibly start down the line, as there is other bigger players that are ahead of him on the depth chart right now, or at least better overall guys, I guess I'm trying to say. Also on this team as well is Wallace O'Brien, who's actually going to start right away for the Golden Eagles defense. Dude can run around and make plays. He's already an 84 overall guy. Dude is going to be an absolute problem, even though he's only 5'11". Also, somebody to potentially watch out for is Davis Banner. He'll be more of a developmental piece for the Golden Eagles. The 72 overall, but is still also a solid player in his own right. Keeping it in the Ohio Valley Conference, though, we now go to Tennessee Martin. And Tennessee Martin did bring a couple of custom guys, particularly on that offensive line. 2 guys in particular that are going to be 80 overall is Dwayne Alty and Joseph Claremont as well. So 2 very strong guys added on that offensive line as the Skyhawks try to make another run at the FCS playoffs. But it was Texas Southern that actually brought in quite a few guys. They had arguably the biggest custom player class in season number 5, as they did manage to bring in 6 custom players. That is quite a bit. One of them is Jay-Sean Paris. He's a 72 overall quarterback that will try to be working his way up the depth chart moving forward, with Andrew Akbar now being elevated to that starting quarterback position. He did beat out Jeff Howe in spring ball. Meanwhile, at running back, we got Ronald Delano. He'll be fighting for that backup running back job against senior redshirt Mike Brown, as Texas Southern typically has been a little bit more run heavy, but I wonder if they changed philosophy now that Roderick Murray did graduate this past season. And the final offensive player that I wanted to bring up is Prince Daniels. Prince Daniels will be a 72 overall center to begin his college career. He will be considered on that 3rd string in the depth chart. Meanwhile, at defensive tackle, we have Akash Terrell. Akash Terrell, a very talented player in his own right, almost got a starting job, but didn't quite win one out. He's going to be the 3rd string guy, so somebody that will play consistently in Texas Southern football games. However, one freshman that will be starting right away, though, is Havon Parker. Havon Parker at 6'2", 238 pounds. He'll also be in here as a starting player and one of your guys' customs too. In the last corner that I wanted to tell about you guys, at least on this Texas Southern team, is Jahan Al-Latif, who that is going to be quite a tongue twister. Try to say that name 3 times fast. But this is a very good football player. 80 overall guy, comes with 99 speed as well. Expect him to especially contribute on special teams because of that. Now, Texas State was able to bring in a few guys as their program became more popular after their very first FCS playoff appearance this past season. Those 3 custom players are Large Avery, who's going to play center and will be likely redshirted this year, so he's a 4th string on that part of the offensive line. But a couple of skill guys that were certainly added as well in what is a very young group in the receiving room. Fanny Watts was one of them. He's a freshman wide receiver at 6'6", but with 90 speed as well. He'll be the 5th string wide receiver for the Texas State Bobcats. But we might have a starter at running back, as Timo Abington making some noise as an 82 overall already. He's going to have to compete with fellow freshman Desi Mosley. Speaking of running backs, though, they got some electric football players in Wilka Trey. Wilka Trey is going to take the bull by the horns, and he's going to dominate the backfield drills down in Northern Iowa. And because of that, he was named the starting tailback for the Northern Iowa Panthers. For the Weber State Wildcats, though, they did add a couple of custom players, too. They had Charles Dowdell on the defensive line, and someone that will be starting right away as he brings good size, 6'6" and 259 pounds. So should see him on the football field early on in his playing career. Also, another custom on this Weber State defense, expected to start in his true freshman year, is Philip Vinson. He comes in as an 80 overall and was able to beat out the likes of Chris Anderson, as well as the senior redshirt Shannon Fuller, for that starting free safety job during the course of spring football. As for Yale, they bring in yet another talented wide receiver for the Bulldogs to work with. This is Hoofington. He comes in as a 74 overall guy and is actually going to be wide receiver 1 for the Yale Bulldogs, at least from the get-go. In addition, Youngstown State added a couple of custom players on the offensive line as well, one of which who is going to start right away is Marcel Deep, who comes in as an 80 overall with 95 strength. He's certainly going to have the ability to move some bodies around. And we, of course, have Tiny Tim, who is also one of your guys' customs as well. Will need a little bit more development. He is a 72 overall and will likely start the year as a backup. And finally, we have the Western Carolina Catamounts, your defending national champions. And a little bit of a surprise here at the quarterback position, as one of your guys' customs, Willie Beame Jr., 84 overall. He comes in and takes the job away from J.C. Dowles, who was seen as the front runner. So a big shock there. Willie Beeman's going to have some big expectations, as he's going to be starting for a football team that just won the national championship this previous season. Other custom players that are on the Catamounts is Koofington, who is going to be a reserve wide receiver, as he is the wide receiver 8 on this depth chart, so likely going to be red-shirted. In addition, there's also Bang Bang, who comes in backing up the first-team All-American Pistol McNeil, so a lot to learn from that guy, who's a very talented football player himself. And at kicker, actually the backup kicker, and will likely be redshirted because of that, got Aaron, who's a 72 overall kicker. Could get some punting duties, though, if either Andrew Moses or Daryl Booker get hurt or suspended for whatever reason. Now, not only do we have some of the new FCS guys coming into the FCS Dynasty, but we have some FBS players who were previously FCS guys. They tried their hand at the NFL, did not work out, so they had a year of eligibility, luckily, so they did try to go to the FBS ranks, and this is that list of players. We'll start by when we'll see their senior night highlights, and we got Speedy Woods to get things going. He's a senior at Utah State. He'll be number 3 on their depth chart, and he transfers over as a 77 overall. Meanwhile, Rod Robertson, who is a transfer from Alcorn State, he's going to go to Purdue Boilermakers, and he's going to win the starting quarterback job. So, real excited to see what Rod Robertson is capable of going to a more traditionally pass-happy school, just like how Alcorn State was. Going to be really interesting to see how his senior year turns out. Also transferring up to the FBS ranks is John Weeks, who leaves North Dakota State to go over to Hawaii. The Hawaii Rainbow Warriors will have John Weeks as their number 1 receiver, finally going to an offense that has a little bit more of a consistent passing attack. Speaking of wide receivers, Jacob Hill from Sacramento State is now going to be at Penn State. He does return back over to the East Coast, but Jacob Hill is going to have a hard time getting playing time here, as he's buried on a very talented Penn State receiving room. He's going to have his work cut out for him. As for David Baxter, a transfer from Elon, he's going to go to the Ohio Bobcats out in the MAC Conference. David Baxter will be their number 3 wide receiver in his senior year. Going to yet another quarterback, though, is Osiah Jackson Jr. He's a transfer from Youngstown State, going across the country to play for the San Diego State Aztecs. He is now a senior redshirt as well. He's going to be an 85 overall and will be their starting quarterback too. And last but not least, we have Russell Matthews, who is a strong safety from Eastern Illinois. He actually has an interesting transfer decision. He is actually going to transfer into Army. He is actually someone that did some ROTC stuff while at Eastern Illinois and decided that while the NFL may not as likely be in the cards for him, he is going to go into the military after his final year of eligibility. He does have 1 more year left, and he's using it to play for the Army Black Knights. So with the custom players revealed at both the FCS and then also some of the people that you guys have submitted in previous seasons that are now at the FBS, that highest level of college football, I want to take a minute to kind of preview what's going to happen in week number 1 and also kind of explain how I want to go with pacing. So in week number 1, we just have, there's no top 25 matchups really. A lot of FCS versus FBS games like Texas versus Columbia, Rice versus Stanford. Game of the week is actually Northwestern State versus Utah State. But how it's going to work is I want to move through this series a little bit faster. Now that we've gone through a whole generation of players, and I want to wrap up this series. Still want to get ideally the season 10. I want to get 10 seasons of this series, but I think in order to accomplish that and still maintain some interest in this series, because it's been going on for almost a year now, I want to go through multiple weeks at a time. So it's going to be a little bit more sim based. We'll still check in on top 25 matchups though. So for week number 1, it will be a pure sim, for example, and that could be the case for week number 2, but we're going to see these top 25 games still. So the games that are going to matter the most in terms of FCS playoff seeding at the end of the day, and that way we'll get through multiple weeks and we'll still give you guys a chance to see the biggest games. So next episode, we could be going through not just week 1, not just week 2, but also weeks 3, 4, and 5 in the this upcoming episode to get things started. Again, it depends on where top 25 matchups are, but that's just kind of what I'm planning. Gonna roll through this a lot faster, but I hope you guys are excited for it. And also, let me know how you guys feel about it in terms of this new format. Do you prefer this? I'm going to move forward with it no matter what, but I always like your feedback on the format of being changed because, you know, depending on how much you guys like it, I might use it for future sim leagues moving forward, because I think I want to do sim leagues a little bit more often. I definitely like doing these for you guys, as long as the interest is obviously there. So that being said, I'm going to sign off. Let me know what your thoughts are of the Season 6 preview, who you're looking for to win national championship, maybe any sleepers you got, either to make the playoffs or being a national champion. And with that being said, this is John J Gaming on the mic signing off, hoping that you liked this video, as well as subscribe if you want to be brand new. In the meantime, though, I hope you guys are all out there having a good one. Take care, everybody.